Bomberman, originally released in 1985 for the Nintendo Entertainment System courtesy of Hudson Soft, was another game selected for re-release on Game Boy Advance as part of 2004's Classic NES Series line. And well, it's the one that started it all. Not counting the very first one from '83 or something, where Bomberman was a guy wearing a hat or something. That's okay, nobody knows that one. So this is a fairly rudimentary iteration of Bomberman compared to what would come along later. There's no multiplayer, the gameplay is generally much slower paced, you have 50 stages of roughly the same green and gray battlefield that would later be relegated to battle mode arena fodder in later games. There's no storyline beyond trying to escape your life as a robot or something, and it's a generally much more basic Bomberman with fairly rudimentary graphics and a small pool of basic melodies that would get improved upon over subsequent follow-up titles. So for those who have played their fair share of Bomberman games, but somehow never got around to playing this first one, there's a bit of an adjustment to be made in terms of the way the game plays or feels. But at its core, it's Bomberman, the basic DNA of the franchise that would follow. Once you're several rounds in and you've built your Bomberman up to this mass-destructive killing machine, the game does start to pick up the pace a bit. It just takes a little while longer to get to that point. Really, it's the pacing that makes the game somewhat unbearable, especially in the beginning, and especially if you're used to the later entries, which, even in their single-player story mode things, were far more exciting. Fortunately, the dull look of the game isn't negatively impacted by the resolution compression onto GBA, so that's something, I suppose. You have an option to continue via password save or secret code save, which keeps track of your progress as well as some of your upgrades. The GBA re-release does allow you to save your progress, but apparently this only works if you get a game over and save the secret code that's on that screen. And unlike in something like Zelda or Metroid, there doesn't appear to be a button shortcut to end the game early and give you the passcode quickly. Unless I'm missing something, which isn't likely since I've read the original Bomberman manual from the NES days, which is perhaps the greatest piece of Pidgin English literature ever conceived, which seems to indicate that Bomberman was originally conceived to build pop stations and never mind, nobody's gonna get that. Bomberman 1 is the basic DNA that gave birth to an entire franchise that would later take that DNA, add a bunch of cool shit around that DNA, and I don't know where I was going with that, but it doesn't matter. Compared to what would come afterwards, Bomberman, quite frankly, hasn't aged all that gracefully due to its slowness, its clunkiness, lack of multiplayer, and just plain Jane vanilla gameplay that won't hold your attention for long unless you're a die-hard Bomberman fan or you've played this many times in the past and it's your favorite version, which, you know, I'm not gonna judge. You're mainly getting this otherwise to complete your Classic NES Series collection if you have that laying around, but otherwise, the Game Boy Advance is already host to a couple of superior Bomberman titles. Bomberman Max 2 and Tournament, I believe they're called. Haven't played them, but I'd imagine those games are far better scratches of that Bomberman itch than this re-release of the first game would be. Yeah, that's all I got. Good night.